So Donald Trump tried to take ownership of a bridge that Canada built, Canada funded, and Canada controls. He wanted it handed over as part of a trade deal. And the mayor of Windsor, the man who would benefit more than almost anyone from this bridge opening, well, he looked at that demand and said 4 words: keep the bridge closed.
A Canadian border town mayor just handed the White House a public rejection. And the reason it hit so hard in Washington is simple. Canada paid for that bridge. Every dollar, every beam. Canada is sitting on the keys, and Canada just made clear those keys do not come for free.
Yeah, the Gordie Howe International Bridge, it's finished. It's ready, it's waiting. And Canada has now made its position completely clear. It opens when Canada decides the terms are fair and not before. And certainly not when Washington decides. And not when Trump runs out of leverage, but when Canada decides.
Now, for anyone coming into this fresh, the Gordie Howe Bridge connects Windsor, Ontario to Detroit, Michigan. It's one of the most consequential trade corridors in the world. Roughly a quarter of all Canada-US trade moves through that crossing every year. That's cars, auto parts, food, manufacturing supply chains, all of it. It all flows through Windsor and Detroit.
And the agreement, it was straightforward. Canada covers the major construction costs. Tolls on the Canadian side repay Canada over time. The United States contributed right-of-way land on the Michigan side. The bridge itself is Canadian funded and governed by a Canada-Michigan authority, not Washington, not the White House, and certainly not the Trade Office.
Trump's position was that opening the bridge should be tied to Canada agreeing to new trade terms. He floated the idea of Canada handing over a stake in the bridge as part of the deal, on a bridge that we, Canadians, paid to build, with Canadian public money.
Well, good thing, because Carney laid out the actual facts right to Trump. Canada funded it, man. American workers and American materials went into the construction. The governing structure is Canada-Michigan. When the documentation is on the table, those vague arguments about unfair practices and bad deals, well, they get very thin very fast. Just like your skin, doll.
The mayor of Windsor, Drew Dilkens, he's not a provocateur. He's a border town mayor who has spent years watching this bridge get closer to opening. His city wants those lanes moving. His businesses, they want trade flowing. So when he says keep it closed rather than sign a bad deal, he's not performing. He's making the calculations.
And he said it directly. Canada is not walking into the White House on bended knee, not after paying for the bridge. And that position did not come down from Ottawa as a political statement at all. It came from the ground level, from a politician whose city is right there at the crossing, who looked at what was being asked and said, Canadian sovereignty costs more than an early ribbon cutting.
Canada's argument is straightforward. We built it, we followed the agreement, we employed American workers and used American material. We are ready to open it when the terms reflect that reality. A completed Canadian-funded bridge does not become Washington's bargaining chip. Come on.
No, the U.S. keeps making that same miscalculation. They assume that Canada needs this bridge open more than the United States does. Because we have a smaller economy and we're export dependent. And, that we're just there to absorb the pressure and will eventually move. But it's just not happening, people. And here is the detail that deserves even more attention. And you need to look into this. The Ambassador Bridge, yes, is privately owned. And it does dominate that crossing. It profits when the new public bridge stays closed. Think about that. So we have a situation here where a private business owner benefits financially for the new bridge not opening right away. And there has to be a reason that Trump is publicly threatening to block that bridge from opening.
Yeah, Dave, because this is not a coincidence. The public deserves to know who benefits when a publicly funded bridge sits unused. It's not Canadian auto workers, it's not Michigan farmers, and it's definitely not the border communities on either side. It's one of Trump's cronies, one of Trump's business friends, and you can bet your life that Trump is making a killing off this as well.
Of course he is. But let's talk about who this is affecting. Michigan. because this standoff is not exclusively a Canadian problem. Michigan officials and Michigan business leaders want this bridge open just as much. Auto parts suppliers need trucks moving, costs down, supply chains running with some sort of degree of certainty. Uncertainty compounds and it delays investment decisions, it raises insurance costs, and it drives businesses to look for alternate routes.
And the pain from this delay does not stop at the border booth. It crosses every day that bridge sits finished and unused. Workers on both sides of the river absorb the cost. And that's what Americans seem to forget. It's not just Canada that's suffering. Washington talks loudly about protecting American workers and then refuses to open infrastructure that directly serves them. Trump doesn't give a rat's ass about the average American worker. That is perfectly clear.
And Canadians are reinforcing their position in ways that go well beyond the bridge itself. Just look at travel to the United States. It's down a ton. Canadian spending at American hotels, restaurants, and tourism destinations, that's also plummeted. Listen, it's simple. Treat us like subordinates and we'll take our money elsewhere.
Yeah. Canada absorbs something important from the first round of trade talks. When you rush to prove that you're reasonable, the demand shifts. Every concession becomes the new floor for the next ask. Canada stopped rushing now, and that change in posture is what's driving Trump mad.
Yep. Prime Minister Carney brought a different approach to these negotiations. Factual, calm, and prepared to wait. The bridge is Canada's. The agreement, we followed that. We're ready to open it, but only when the terms are fair. And if they're not fair, well then, Canada has already shown that we can absorb the discomfort.
The old assumption was that Canada's smaller economy meant Canada would always need the deal more than the USA, that Canada would reach its limit before the United States would. Well, that bridge standoff, it confirms, alongside with the travel numbers, the investment ranking, the boycotts, the trade diversion, it's showing that Canada has recalculated what it can and cannot afford to accept.
Listen, the Gordie Howe Bridge, it's going to open at some point. But only when the trade terms reflect reality and both sides have a fair agreement on the table. That's when those lanes will fill up and that crossing will deliver everything it was built to be. But the opening date is not going to be set by the Oval Office and Trump and his cronies. It's going to be set by Canada and Windsor.
Mayor Drew Dilkens said it perfect, and he meant it. Keep it closed. This is not a statement against the bridge. It's a statement about what that bridge cost Canada to build and what it will cost Canada if we just give it away. When a border town mayor with everything to gain from opening day chooses sovereignty over an early headline, that tells you exactly where Canada is standing right now. And Daniel Smith, take note. That's a Canadian.
Yeah. Listen, the line is simple and it's firm. The bridge opens on Canada's terms, or it waits. And for a country that was supposed to blink under pressure, Canada is definitely holding the line better than it ever has, and Trump absolutely hates that. So let's keep doing that.
And here's our question for you today. Do you think Canada will hold the line and keep that bridge closed until a fair CUSMA deal is on the table?
Or does the economic pressure on workers on both sides of the border eventually force some sort of movement?
Drop your comments below and tell us where you think this will be in 6 months.
Yeah, because this is going to keep evolving and we're going to stay on top of it.
So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a hype. We love hypes, everybody. And share it with somebody maybe who is affected by the border communities.
And also check out the pinned comment down below for all the good stuff. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Ciao for now.